Check this.
Hello, this is Socially Triggered, and this video is going to be about taking a magical journey to the land of Wakanda. And if you're not familiar with the land of Wakanda, it is the home of Black Panther. Now, as a kid, I was a big fan of the Black Panther comic, and I always wondered, could the story of some magical place like Wakanda be really true? And if you're not familiar with this land of Wakanda, I'll just give a quick rundown of what it is. According to the story, a meteor struck someplace in Africa, and it left a deposit of a strange material called vibranium. Now, vibranium is unlike any other metal. It has energy manipulating qualities. It can absorb sound waves and other vibrations, and including kinetic energy. With vibranium, Wakanda was able to develop a technology very advanced, and a civilization that was way more advanced than the rest of the world. It has cloaking technology, spaceships, powerful weaponry, and other futuristic wonders. Like many other movies where magical place is shown, people begin to wonder if such a place could really exist. Thus, the movie caused a rebirth in the whole meme of Wuz Kangz, featuring a Wakandan flavor. But the question remains, could such a place exist? Now, in the story, there's some really kind of key points that you would kind of think, well, if it was such an advanced society, why would they have these kind of elements? For example, dictatorships. They're isolationist. They have rich resources. And these are all things that would kind of work against an advanced technology state. Like, dictatorships aren't really conducive to producing advanced societies. Usually, as a society becomes more advanced, it becomes a little bit more egalitarian, and it becomes a little bit more democratic in its methodologies. Isolationists. Now, Wakanda is hidden by this cloaking mechanism, which basically makes it by itself in the world. And that kind of separation or isolationism really doesn't allow for advancement. One of the things that really encourages advancement in technology and in terms of human development is the exchange of ideas. Europe, visiting other countries, got ideas from those other countries and developed technologies as a result. We think of things like spaghetti or fireworks from China being used for gunpowder and to make weapons that allowed Europeans to conquer much of the world. So these are the things that exchange of technology really encourages. But if you're an isolationist state, you just really lack the brain power of your own people to really build up ideas and think of new ways of seeing the world. So you really need that exchange of ideas. Another problem is they're rich in resources. That's a big problem in Africa. That if you're really rich in resources, well, there's never a real need to kind of advance. If you look at why Europe became a very technologically advanced civilization, well, it was because of the fact that they really didn't have much resources. There was scarcity of resources. And when you have scarcity, well, you have to figure out ways to survive when resources are very scarce. How do you survive in the winter? Well, you develop ways of storing food, of cultivating new resources that allow you to survive during harsh times. So when you have plenty, well, there's no real drive to develop technology. We can just, if there's a fruit tree that's always beside you and you can just pluck food off that tree, well, there's no drive to go any further than that tree. And this is one of the problems that I see in the whole setting of Africa. Now, if you look at Africa, the African effect, it's that Africa is a very rich resource continent. It has amazing resources. But the people that lived in Africa never developed those resources. And part of the reason was they didn't need to. They had it's a warm climate. They had a lot of things that would just allow them to survive without doing any kind of advancement or developing of their technology. A good example of this, if you really want to understand the concept of like some magical mineral coming down and all of a sudden making a society advance, well, that doesn't really work that way. If you think about uranium is a very, very powerful element, because if you can figure out how to harness it, then you can make nuclear energy, and that just gives you almost limitless amounts of energy to work with. You can make very powerful weapons like nuclear bombs. Well, it took us many, many years to get to that point where we could actually understand how to develop that resource. So to go from a very primitive society to going to a very advanced society just because you have uranium doesn't work. It doesn't, and vibranium would be the same thing. You would actually have to know how to get to that point. You'd have to know, how would I use this? And it's almost evolutionary in the way we approach these things. We don't just automatically know how to use uranium or vibranium or whatever mineral it is. We actually go through an evolutionary process where we develop understandings and we increase our understanding over time. And then we gradually say, hey, wait, I can maybe use it for this way. And we really build up our knowledge. So just because you have some fantastic resource doesn't mean that you would actually be able to utilize it in any particular futuristic way. So the African effect would be very negative towards going that way, that it'd probably the meteor would have fallen, the resource would have stayed in the ground. The people that lived in that area probably would be like every other area of Africa, where they just didn't need to go any further. They didn't need to develop anything. It was only when the Europeans came to Africa that a lot of the resources got utilized, because Europeans had the mentality and they had the sophistication to say, hey, these resources can be used in this way. And they really brought a lot of their technology to Africa. So the same would happen with Wakanda, that it wouldn't ever develop that technology that it needs in order to utilize the resource that it has. So it's for these reasons that I think Wakanda is a great story, but just would never happen. So just they don't have the government structure. They're isolationists in the way that they live. They have rich resources, which kind of goes against developing new technologies. And also, even if you have a great resource, doesn't mean that you'll ever develop towards it or be able to understand how to use it unless you go through that evolutionary process of developing your technology in order to have the understanding to utilize that resource. So this has been Socially Triggered. I'd be curious about what your thoughts are on Wakanda. And could Wakanda really happen? Tell me why you think it could happen. And if not, tell me what other reasons maybe that would exist that would prevent a Wakanda from happening. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And check out my other videos. I hope you enjoyed this one. Thanks. Bye.
Check this.